I'm in my office. That's always like, so many people text me for the draft, hey, good luck. I'm like, yeah, I got to be honest. Like, that's not my area of expertise. Front office handles all that. So I'm in my office, but I'm in contact with people that are up in that war room. But I'm not, Monty's the one wheeling and dealing up there,
Do you get jazzed up when the pick's coming up and what you're hearing stuff, or is it just like, we're gonna get players this weekend and whatever they give me, they give me?
So you're saying, do I get like kind of fired up as the pick's coming up?
Yeah, especially when there's defensive picks that happen.
Absolutely, yeah, no doubt. You can ask Kenny Bell. I'm usually kind of pacing around in his office because I don't really understand even what TV system we have at my house. So I have no way to like log on. Everyone's got YouTube TV and stuff or whatever they have, and I don't know. My wife handles all that, so I have no way of keeping up with the draft in my office. So I go to other people's office, and usually when that pick's coming up, I'm kind of, invading someone else's space, and I'm definitely fired up when we get the guys we want.
How much do you and the position coaches during the whole process have input
on
some of the individuals?
That's the bigger part that we obviously play as coaches in the draft. I think Monty, Sears, Kiss, the whole front office, they do a phenomenal job of bringing us in on that process and letting us evaluate each player. And really the big thing that we have to do is describe what vision we have for that player, what role can he fill, and what we think of him. So they do a phenomenal job of taking everyone's input and hearing us out and going from there to make the best decision that they feel like is best for the team.
You've brought in a lot of cornerbacks the last couple of years, which numbers-wise I'm sure is helpful. A lot of youth. Are you confident in the group behind Sean and being able to sort through all these guys?
Yeah, I'm excited about it. Because I think there's a lot of guys that can play and step into that starting role. So it's really good competition. This is going to be a fun rest of the OTAs and into training camp of seeing really good players go out there and compete for roles. So I'm excited about, all those guys. I'm excited about all of them, but yeah, Max, I think he's got a really good skill set. To play corner, you're out there. We call it, you're on an island. You're in the fast lane, and you got to be able to run. And you got to be able to cover these elite receivers that are really all over the NFL. And Max has that skill set. He's got really good speed. He has feel to play the position. He can contest throws. He's got long arms. So I think his ceiling is really high as a player. Excited to get to work with him.
Going with 3 rookies as starters throughout their time.
Yeah. You're gonna put the best 11 on the field, and a lot of times that's not the same 11 throughout a game, right? So multiple people are going to contribute in different roles, and whether it's a rookie, whether it's a 10-year vet, you're putting the guys that you feel like put you in position that week to help you win the game.
When you found out that Darius Robinson was going to be the guy, how pumped were you to add him to the defense?
I mean, I was extremely excited because of, one, the guy, and then honestly, I spent some time with him at the combine, but when he got here, I was like, whoa, he's everything that we thought he was and more. As far as the guy, and then the skill set is really good. It fits what we want to do. He's going to give us some versatility. So yeah, super excited.
There is in the versatility. He's played inside and outside. What are you looking for to determine where you want to play him mostly, and what's the timeline for when that decision has to be made before you really think?
I think with everything we do defensively does revolve around being adaptable. And it's not just Darius, but we'll ask several guys to be able to play multiple spots. And so I think it's going to just be kind of natural part of learning that position, those multiple positions. There's going to be a lot of guys doing that. So it just fits into, you could say like the curriculum of how we're going to teach things, where he's going to get reps at a lot of different spots.
How do you describe his attention to detail, Darius?
It's extremely impressive. I mean, the guys on the draft stage talking about his hand placement. I mean, I think that says enough. Who talked about hand placement right when you get drafted? Most guys, hey, I'm coming to the city, excited to help him win. This guy's talking about his hand placement. So it's like that. I think that says it right there of how detailed he is. And, he did an interview after the draft too, talking about his process on a week-to-week basis. And, I love when guys have a really good routine, because it means that they are making sure that they're checking every box of every facet of their game, whether that's scheme, technique, the physical, psychological, or their health. Like they take all of those into great consideration and really map out that plan of how do I maximize myself going into a game. So, yeah, detail, hand placement.
You guys have had a pretty significant overhaul to the defensive line in terms of adding pieces. Like where you thought where the defensive line, because of injuries and everything, was at the end of last season compared to now. Like, I assume you're happy with the improvements you've been able to make and where that might be able to take it.
Yeah, I mean, that's another room with, I think, really good competition throughout. One thing that stands out to me with some of the pieces we've added is leadership. I mean, it's unbelievable. Two guys that stand out to me is JJ and Bilal. Like, in the meetings, it's like they're coaches as well. And the dialogue that happens, we talk about having interactive meetings, just the dialogue that's happening in that defensive line room right now it's high intelligence, it's high leadership, it's just phenomenal. So excited about the players, and I'm really happy and excited going forward about the guys, the leaders.
You have guys that have been in the building for only about a month and a half, and they're right away kind of assuming the role of coach.
Yeah, sometimes. I don't know if it's rare. I guess, that can be case to case, but there's definitely a tendency maybe when you're a new guy to kind of walk slow and just get a feel for it. And, I think it's natural for them to be leaders. And I told them, like, you're not coming here as the new guy. You step right into the role of who you know you are and be yourself. And so they're just being themselves right now.
Mike, sorry to interrupt. What's it like coming into your second season now as a defensive coordinator? You feel like you grew a lot last year? You feel like you're much further ahead?
Yeah, I think I grow every year, to be honest. And I always look back and be like, man, remember 2 years ago when I didn't know anything? Man, I don't even know how I was functioning. So I think every year, I hope that, one day, many years out, I feel that same way, that every offseason I grow. You grow during the season. It's harder to feel those because you're so just in the thick of it. But in the offseason, I think, the great thing about the NFL compared to maybe like, college level is you don't have to do recruiting. You can do a lot of work to increase your knowledge. And, that's something that I think that we as coaches collectively have done a really good job of. Each guy has enhanced their knowledge, and then we've shared that knowledge to the room. So I always talk about, like, when guys have to do a study on something, whether that's scheme, technique, whatever it is, how to teach better. I say that when you present this, you better increase the knowledge of the collective. And so, I mean, I credit a lot of the stuff that I've learned this offseason to my staff, to the offensive staff, to JG, of just being able to share that information and grow as coaches so that we can better serve the players, right? The better teachers we are, the more knowledge we have, the better that we can get them to really go out there and execute at a higher level. And, it starts in that meeting room and then it goes out on the field. So, yeah, I've hoped I've taken some strides intellectually, and I think the whole staff has.
Adrian, Elijah, and Max.
Rabbit. Adrian goes by Rabbit. Let's just get that. Everyone good? Rabbit going forward? Yeah, Rabbit.
You guys took the ball away at the collegiate level.
Yeah.
How can you get that to translate to the next level?
Well, we talk about how do we take the ball away. So we define all those things with how do you create interceptions, through batted passes, through contesting at the catch point. How do we create fumbles off of ball carriers, off of quarterbacks? And so we'll teach that stuff. We'll work it on the field, so it's part of what we do. And guys that can go out there and make it happen, like, they're the ones that make it happen. So the fact that they've made it happen, you can often see that start to carry over into whatever league they're playing. Take away in high school, they're going to take away in college. They take away in college, hopefully they're taking it away in the NFL. So, takeaways, that's a huge statistic as far as creating, a better chance to win a game. And so that's critical for us on defense.
You mentioned Justin and Bilal on the coaching and meeting. Did they have any familiarity, do you know, with this scheme before they came here? And how would you, characterize this scheme in terms of how it is for players to come in and learn it?
Yeah, I think one thing that ever since I've been with JG that we did as far as the scheme is we just kind of created our own terminology, what made sense. It's funny because like as you go with time, you realize as you start to build stuff, you start to create some crazy names that mean absolutely nothing. And in the moment, you're like, yeah, just call that zebra, right? Yeah, sure. Like, what the heck does zebra mean? So, like, I don't know if any of the terminology is similar, but they're familiar with some of the techniques that we'll use up front, whether that was their coaches in college or at the NFL level. And then they'll have some skill set stuff that is really good that they've had in the past that will help translate as well. So, terminology, you got to learn kind of, sometimes we tear our terminology down and make it better for the next season. But the principles remain the same. So, yeah, they'll have some familiarity, but also some new stuff.
You mentioned Adrian fit into defensive scheme.
Yeah, rabbit. So, with all our safeties, and I've talked to the players about this, is some of the stuff we do, just asking them to cover receivers, right, at that safety position. And you can't do that with every safety. So I feel like the safety room we have now and Rabbit coming in fits that skill set of combination of being able to both cover slots and also play deep zones. So it fits right into a lot of those guys that we already have in the room and highly value that at that position.
It's kind of a deep room right now. How does Xavier kind of crack that rotation between now and?
He's got to come in and compete. Like you said, it's a deep room, a really good competition, and just like everybody, he's got to come in and be good in pass rush, run game, and coverage.
Creating new terminology on that. So in other words, you guys didn't bring over the same things you did in Philly.
No, some, right? Not 100%. It's never all or nothing. But when we first got here as a staff, I wanted to make sure I used the brains of everybody, and so that was I had to be willing to adapt and change and make things better because it can always be better. And the game changes, the offenses change. So the 2023, that's outdated. So even what we had for last year, that's not necessarily what you want to be doing in 2024. You got to be looking at how our offense is changing, evolving. What are they doing to put up points, generate explosives, and you have to be able to shift your defense to help take away certain things that you're going to anticipate seeing throughout the year. And then there's going to be things in 2024 that you're like, what is this? Like, when did this start happening? Like, gosh, this is hard. And then now you're going to start to adapt to that. You got to make a little bit of adjustment throughout the season. And then come 2025, we're going to look at our 2024 playbook and be like, that ain't it anymore, So every year you have to adapt and be able to change.
What are your expectations? You mentioned the outside linebacker room. I'm wondering what your expectations are. You've got Zaven going into his second year at that spot and BJ going into his second year period. Like, for those two guys in particular, what kind of expectations do you have?
I want them to make strides in every aspect of their game. So I can't say there's anything particular. Every player has a specific improvement plan, which can be pretty detailed out as far as what it is maybe schematically they have to do better or technique. And I'll kind of keep that between us. But they need to take strides. Everybody needs to take strides, not just those two in every part of their game. And I know that those two specifically, like, they have really high ceilings, right? They can be really good players, and they were very productive for us last year, and hopefully they're even more productive for us this year.
Thomas, what'd you make of his speed? Because it was
Yeah, and the thing that stands out with his speed is his get off, and he really stresses tackles to have to kick to get out to him, right? So one thing I loved about that his speed brings to his game, specifically his pass rush, is his ability to win with speed and then transition to power. And he sets up those power rushes off of that speed that he has. So he is fast, and he utilizes that skill set, and I think he does a really good job at that. I think for a rookie, I thought his pass rush technique was pretty polished up, and I hope it only just gets better when he gets here.
With Saban bouncing around positions, are you able to articulate kind of where his ceiling is and how far he needs to go?
Yeah, it's I think 32.8 feet. Yeah, that's a hard question. I just throw that word ceiling out there. That's just infinite. Hopefully we break through whatever that ceiling is. But what's the question?
Especially not having the fifth-year option picked up and just how he approaches this year
Yes.
What's the next step for him?
Yeah, well, to start, like Zaven is so unique because he's has such a good skill set and he's so smart. So I could ask this guy to do anything, right? And that presents issues for offenses and allows us to do a lot of different things defensively because he can fit in so many roles. So I love that part of his game. And you know, we ask him to do a lot and he handles it. And then, you know, second year at the position, you know, he's only going to get better at what that position specifically requires. Because obviously he took majority of his snaps on the edge, right? And so we're talking about setting edges in the run game. We're talking about winning one-on-one pass rush. And then you're talking about dropping into coverage. And so, you know, each of those three things for just that outside linebacker, if we just said, hey, outside linebacker only, you know, you improve on all those things, like you're becoming a really overall well-balanced player, really good outside backer.
How much versatility with the new DBs coming in do you think there is joining the group, and whether it's corner, whether it's safety, slot, inside, outside, with the guys even from last year like Garrett or whoever?
Yeah, it's very nice because I think everybody in that room right now, both the safety room and the corner room, and then the guys that we're bringing in, I think everybody can play multiple positions. So that's corners that can play nickel, nickels that can play corner, that's safeties that can play nickel, that's nickels that can play safety. And when you have that flexibility, it allows you to, you know, one, be adaptable with whoever's on the field, but two, when you go into a game week, what do we have to do to put the best guys on the field to win the game? And when guys can play multiple spots and they're intelligent enough to do so, you can shift pieces around and do what you ever have to do on a week-to-week basis. So I love where we're at right now as far as guys that can play multiple positions, whether they're here or we're bringing them in. And, you know, that the big thing with that is, like, how do you plan to rep that? So that it's one thing to know it in the meeting room, but it's another thing to actually be able to go out on the field and process it. And you have to be cognizant of making sure you master a spot, or, you know, you strive for mastery in a position, but then you start to dabble in those other spots where you know that they have flexibility to, if you ever need to shift a guy around, that they can go play that spot.
Bunting is really the only veteran in that room. I know you've only been on the field and not even in real practice, limited times with him, but at least from film or meeting rooms, I mean, what have you gathered from him and what he's going to add to that room?
Yeah, serious about ball, leader. His tape has shown that he can play in this league at a high level. You know, he's in my office in the morning wanting to dive into deeper levels than we've been able to cover now for, this is week 3. Like, you know, we've only been able to cover so much, and he's asking for more information. He wants to know the why behind everything. So, phenomenal pro. Absolutely a leader in that room, leader of the defense. You know, that kind of goes back into, you know, new guys come in, don't come in, you know, just kind of stepping slow, trying to fit in. No, forget that. Like, be yourself, take it over, because I know who you are, he knows who he is, and he's done so far.
With that, are there vets that you kind of point rookies to kind of follow and shadow their process?
All our vets, you know. There's so many guys that you can look up to on this defense, on this team. It doesn't have to just be in your position, too. And I encourage the vets to, you know, lead the way. And, you know, one thing we talk about is communication. Like, it could be, you know, allowed that a guy, a veteran, a starter, a really good player, goes throughout his business, kind of keeps to himself, but that's not going to help better the team. And so, you know, I said, it's your job responsibility that everyone in this room communicate to each other, communicate to the coaches, performance staff, nutrition, everybody. Like, communication is so critical in many ways. So opening up that communication and saying, hey, I expect this from you guys. I know it's not in your job description, but it is, right? I want you guys to communicate what you like, what you don't like, what could be changed, because I'm all ears for those guys, so I want them to communicate with me, and I want them to communicate with each other, because they're going to help each other. And the better each individual is, the better we are as a team.
What do you think Jones, Bonnie and JG said that his film work reminded him of Garrett Williams, just his read.
Yes, absolutely. He walked out of that combine interview, I was like, oh, Garrett? Was that Garrett in here?
What else about him stood out to you?
Yeah, well, I want to talk about that interview. It was impressive. I mean, I kid you not. I was sitting there taking notes. I was like, gosh, this is a great way to prepare. Like, we should like add this into our regimen. Like, it was an unbelievable process that he takes into a week-to-week basis, like studying the opponent. But as far as the skill set, we talk about you're on the highway out there, like he can run. You know what I'm saying? He can play press man, he can bail, and he can play a zone. He can cover a lot of ground if he has to overlap in a deep zone. And then, one thing that really stands out with him is he can finish on the ball. We talked about the interceptions, but just the contests, the batted passes, playing through the triangle, getting the ball out last second on a receiver, like it pops out on the tape. So really excited about that. He's a long dude, bit tall, 6'1", long arms. He can really finish on balls.
How's Keytrail's mindset coming into this year?
Keytrail's got an
Starting-
assassin mindset. He's got an assassin mindset. That's one thing that he is very. Ever since he walked in this building, you could see that he's wired the right way, and I always talk about we're always having to get better psychologically, right? And we take that very serious here on how we can develop it. And he's got that mindset where he's extremely resilient. He knows he can be a great player, and he shows up every day and works. And he hasn't changed one bit from when he was starting to then he wasn't starting a couple games. He was the same guy all the time, and that's going to carry him a long way. Just that work ethic, that mindset. He's wired the right way.
You mentioned Darius's versatility. Do you primarily see him going into this rookie minicamp on the inside or outside, or where do you primarily see him?
Yeah, he'll be in the defensive line room, but he'll have to do a lot of different things along with those other defensive linemen. So, rookie minicamp specifically, we're taking baby steps. So that'll be up to Derek what he wants to install initially and what he wants to work on the field. But, over the course of the offseason, he's going to have to do a lot of different things.
Excitement level seeing Kaiser back working out in meeting rooms, not wearing a sling, none of that.
Yeah. Leader, runs the defense, green dot. It's huge that he's back. He's a captain for a reason. So he makes the team better, makes the defense better, makes the linebacker room better. I love the guy. Obviously, I've been with him now for 3 years, and his attitude every day is special. He's got a big smile on his face, and it's fun to see him back out there on the field.
Matt Wilson, how do you view him in your scheme?
Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Very versatile, again, right? Can play multiple positions. So he's going to do a lot for us, just like we ask a lot of guys to do. His skill set is one that can play inside. We say he's a heavy-handed dude. He can sit in there and thump, and he also has that strength to play on the edge. One thing that surprised me a little bit when I turned on that New England tape is, man, he was rushing really well off the edge, which I didn't necessarily realize coming out of college that he had that in him. So skill set is huge. He can do a lot of different things, and he will do a lot of different things for us.
When you talk about the defensive versatility of all these guys,
Yeah.
is that based more on strategical ideas where we want to be able to play these guys so the other team doesn't know where they are? Is it based on like, hey, if somebody's not playing well or gets hurt, then we have that option? What's the main focus of why you want all this?
All the above. Yeah. I mean, you kind of said it right there, right? That ability to put people on the field and offenses don't know where they're going to be. Or someone loses their shoe. This guy's just sitting here talking about injury. Someone loses their shoe. Yeah, you get shoe club. Yeah, then you have the ability to flex people around and put whoever you need to put on the field to win the game. But you don't have to be pigeonholed into specific schemes just because only these guys are available. Well, he can go play this spot and he can play this spot, and we can still do whatever we feel like we need to do scheme-wise to go against this opponent we're playing, whether we're trying to take away a certain guy or take away what their scheme presents, all of that. Does that make sense?
The crown is yours.
You couldn't hear this, but Pete was also saying that at the same time in our ear.
Why didn't you think I can hear it?
Oh, the people at home I was talking
Oh,
to.
I
Sorry
got you.
about that.
I thought
Yeah.
they were talking to me. Like I'm not a part of the show. Oh, yeah. What's up, everybody? It's Chris Sims Unbuttoned. It's Chris Sims. Connor Rogers is here today. He is wearing a flower shirt. Okay, we'll talk about that in a minute. You luckily won't have to hear Pete Dimalitis' voice today, even though I do think we should maybe think about giving him a mic, right? I think the people need to hear Pete's voice, the cackle, everything that goes along with it,
laugh.
right? Right, great laugh,
Like
right?
iconic laugh.
People ask me about it all the time, and I go, have you seen Billy Madison? Have you seen the woman that serves Sloppy Joes?
I've never heard this.
That's his voice. That's a Sloppy Joes. Make them extra sloppy, don't you? He kind of has that laugh.
Wow.
That's what it reminds me of right there. But
that's good.
Yep, I do think Pete is like, we're on the verge of giving him a microphone. Now, we also, when we do that, might later in that same podcast go, this is the last time we're giving
Or
you a
cut it.
microphone.
Right.
Right. So we'll have to figure that out as we go. But what's up, everybody? We're here. It's Wednesday after the draft. We're still digesting the draft. And then who better to have today? Not only did I need you to guest host for Amin Fareed, who is just constantly cheating on me lately,
Right.
and just
He's already at the Derby.
I'm obviously
assuming?
I'm his side piece.
Yes.
I'm his side piece.
At best.
That's all
Yeah,
I am.
you-
I'm just some blonde with a nice booty
Yep.
that he likes to talk to every now and then.
Yeah.
There, he's using me.
Yeah, you're reaching like midnight phone call once every 3 months.
Exactly
hours.
right. That's where he is. I mean, he's already in Kentucky. I was like, what do you got to do? Like, you got to clean the horses? You got to scout them
It's
as they
quite
walk
early.
around the.
I'm going tonight.
You're going tonight
for like 18 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're here though, nonetheless, to save the day, and not a better day to have you here. Really, seriously, Connor, because you do a great job with the draft
you,
and all
Chris.
this stuff. I always enjoy your perspective, and I want to hear some of your thoughts on these things too. So we'll kind of unpack it. We got a little tool and device here to kind of go through it all.
Yeah, and I think we did a couple shows like this last year,
I think we did,
which was
right?
a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Just to kind of look at last year's draft class, the results of their rookie years, and then what can this year's draft class, kind of contribute in that same manner. So it was an exciting draft, man, and we knew there was gonna be a lot of theater and drama in the top 15 at least, and I don't think we were left disappointed.
We
at
were
all.
not disappointed. I mean,
No.
definitely not. I mean,
Your reactions were priceless,
Oh.
but it's how everybody felt. I mean, because obviously starting with the 8th overall pick as well.
Yeah, I think the crazy thing was going into the draft that night, and Ahmed said this while we were doing it in the barn. I had a pretty good feel, like the first 7 picks. I kind of knew what they were going to happen. I kind of
Same.
stated it before we started it, and I was like, hey, this is it. So it was almost shocking in that it was going so chalk that it was surprising, because usually you never expect it to go chalk, right?
Right.
Even when you hear from the most credible sources in the world and you hear directly from teams, shit changes, and all of a sudden you're like, damn, I thought I knew 5 of the first 7 picks, and it's changed
Exactly.
around. That didn't happen, but I think that actually added to the excitement, let alone, like, hey, at 3, we were sitting there, are the Patriots going to make a trade? Is something going to happen? I think we were all interested in that, but, yeah, of course, at the offensive players through the first half of the draft, the quarterback situation, some of the trade, and then, of course, the Atlanta move is the one that made all our jaws drop. But, all right, so, through the draft and everything there, right? I gave, like, on Monday some teams that I thought, knocked it out of the park more than others, right?
Yeah.
Here would be my, if you had a top 5 for Chris Sims, right?
Okay.
Right? I would go the Cardinals, I think, killed it.
Yeah.
I think the Ravens addressed a lot of needs. Maybe not guys that I go, oh, wow, I love this guy everywhere, but a lot of guys I go, they needed a player there, and I like this guy.
That's what they do.
Right? So I like that. The Buffalo Bills, I thought killed round 2 and 3. Okay? But the Bengals, all right, I shouldn't have said Buffalo. They weren't in my top 5. Sorry. Bengals were one that I put in my top.
Really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I liked what they did. The Eagles, of course. I mean, the Eagles, I really don't have to look past the first two picks, and I'm just like, sold,
The same
whatever.
thing. Rebuild
right?
the secondary.
And the other 2 that I like, and now that I've named 6 here, but is the Commanders and the Bucks. I thought were 2 that were also stood out to me. Those would be my most notable ones. Had some other ones too to talk about, but I want to hear you. Like, what's the Connor Rogers team you think kind of knocked it out of the draft or knocked it out of the park here?
So I gave out 4 A's.
Okay.
And I try to be really careful with grades now, because the reality is a lot of drafts are going to suck. Like, people don't want to say that after the draft because that's not fun.
Yeah.
But it's really hard to draft.
Right.
It's really hard to come out of a draft with more than 2 really good players.
Right.
Like, that's the reality. So I only gave out 4 A's. The Eagles, no surprise, Chris, right?
Yep.
I had the Rams, who I really now
I'm
the
with you.
Rams.
They were one of the teams I mentioned.
They paid a steep price this year because they gave up some future assets, but they still had a great class this year.
They did.
The Steelers, I gave an A as well. I think that offensive line is going to absolutely kick the crap out of people now.
Right.
And the Chargers, which is a very controversial draft because they're.
I'm with you though.
But
listen, I got all those names written down as well. I'm with you all the way.
And then I gave out. You brought up the Cardinals.
Right.
I gave them an A-.
Yeah.
They were pretty great. They did some weird stuff throughout, but overall, like it was a really good draft. And I gave the Giants an A- as well.
Okay.
I think the Giants did really, really well in this draft, despite there's disappointment maybe because they don't walk away with a quarterback. But I'm glad they didn't press the panic button on a quarterback and just took good football players.
Yeah,
instead.
I'm with you there, right? I like Tyler Newman as well.
I love him.
Andrew Phillips has got
he's a sticky corner.
Got great change of direction, movement, and skills. I think he's going to be more of a nickel guy. Theo Johnson, athletic tight end out of Penn State, right? So I'm with you there. That was good. That was one I probably should have added in my conversation or on my list there. But you're right. The Rams were phenomenal. There was another team or player I was going to just elaborate on that you brought up there, and I forgot. Wait, you said the Steelers. You said the Giants.
The Chargers.
The Chargers. That's where I wanted to go. The Chargers one is I just don't know. I don't get it. Right.
Okay.
I don't get why people are so mad at it. Right.
Oh, that's what my problem was.
I don't get it. It couldn't be better for a Jim Harbaugh football team. It couldn't be better for Horvitz, a GM from Baltimore. They got the guys, and again, I said culture, whatever that makes sense for their football team and makes sense for the way Jim Harbaugh coaches. Let alone everybody's got to get away from sexy all the time. I know everybody in the Chargers and the fan base wanted Malik Neighbors, right? I get that, but. Again, here you're going to have a more well-rounded team with Joe Alt and then the lad McConkey instead of, wait, we're not sure how well we'll be protected or if we can ever run the ball. And Neighbors is open downfield, but Herbert doesn't have time.
Right.
And or we have no run game to exist, so they're doubling Neighbors every play, right? So now you got a little more versatility in your offense, and I think you're a better, complete unit this way. I think that's the most important thing, and that's where I like the Chargers draft too.
You look at this draft top to bottom, right? Alt's going to be a franchise tackle along with Slater. McConkey's a guy that understands how to get open in that 0 to 10-yard range. I thought Junior Colson was a top 40 player, and Jim Harbaugh knows all about Junior Colson. That was the guy on his defense, okay? I mean, you're talking about premium leader,
I know.
Premium athlete.
And it's the same D coordinator he had in Michigan is there with the Chargers. He's the quarterback of the defense right away.
Instant success.
Yes.
I think with the Boygby, I didn't value him as high as they took him, but he fits what they do on defense, right? Like hard-nosed, heavier front player.
Right.
Tarheeb still athletic nickel. Cam Hart, the opposite. Big, physical, outside corner. I think he's a future starter. They got him in the 5th round. Kamani Vidal, well, him and Rasheen Ali were the two value backs to me.
Right.
Like, if you're going to take a dart throw in the 6th round on a running back with a little juice, Kamani Vidal was that kind of guy. Then you take 2 perimeter wide receivers that you think can block.
Exactly right.
Brennan Rice and Cornelius Johnson. Cornelius Johnson just came from Michigan where he was asked to block and asked to make plays above the rim. So what's wrong with this draft?
I agree. I mean, guys that are going to be ready too, and Rice and Cornelius Johnson, ready for to be pros, already approach the game like a pro.
Yeah.
So
they'll push Quentin Johnston and
Palmer. Exactly right. Well, and that's the good
yeah.
thing. They'll do that, and then you got your lad McConkey, like you said, to work the underneath and be the jitterbug guy and all of that. All right. So off of that, that's your teams you like the most. You gave me the A's. If you had to pick one, who would have been? Who would have been that one out of your A's there that you just want to go, okay, if I have to give one, trophy out, you giving it to the Eagles for those first few picks? Or
I think I would still give it to the Chargers.
Yeah.
Now, the Rams,
I like it.
The Rams made one hell of a run at it from top to bottom because they did some things in the 6th and 7th round that really, really impressed me.
Yeah.
I mean, they took KT Leviston with one of the last picks of the draft. He played left tackle next to Cooper Beebe, who the Cowboys took on day 2.
Right.
He's not a tackle. He's a guard that was playing tackle. Right. With the Rams pivoting to this downhill scheme and all the money they've paid their interior offensive line, he's like the perfect backup. If you could literally create a backup in a lab for those guys that's cost-effective, it's KT Leviston. And then they also got Bo Limmer, a backup center in the 6th round, Jordan Whittington, their classic blocking, tough guy wide receiver in the 6th round. They just kind of looked at the 6th round and said, okay, let's just get depth. That's actual depth, not like practice squad guys.
Yeah.
So, and we all know how good they did in the early portion of the draft as well. So, yeah, I really liked those 2 drafts. I was super impressed. I mean, there was some teams that they did really well. It was just kind of thinner, right? Like the Bears, once they got Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, they couldn't lose the draft.
No, you couldn't lose it.
But they didn't walk out with 7
you
stars.
Wow,
No.
No doubt about that. All right, so you hit that. Now, I want to also hear, before we get into our little bit of our rookie predictions for 2024, we're going to have a little fun of, like, who will be this year's C.J. Stroud, who will be this year's, Devon Achane, right? I mean, we're going to go through it that way a little bit. That's the vehicle we're using today. But before we get there, right, no Atlanta Falcons answers here for either one of these, all right?
Yeah.
No Falcons Penix is allowed.
And I love Penix, so I didn't even kill that draft.
I mean, I do too, but I still think that's the dumbest pick of round 1.
Yeah,
okay,
it's a little
I'm going to
perplexing.
say that. Which team's draft confused you the most? And then what pick, other than Michael Penix, maybe confused you the most?
I can kind of merge these together with the Titans. And it's not J.C. Latham, because that didn't surprise me.
Right.
I thought Latham would go at 5 or 7.
Yep.
And I had him go 5 in my last mock draft. He went 7. I knew that was his floor.
Mm-hmm.
It's just what the Callahan's like in an offensive lineman. It's not a pick that you can crush. I thought there was better offensive linemen.
Right.
But
I did it, just so you know. I love Latham.
You loved him.
My number 1 guy, my favorite.
And I trust them as offensive line developers.
Right.
So that pick's fine. Everything they did after that, really, like Tavondre Sweat in the top 40, I was perplexed.
Definitely the first time I sat up in round 2 was I went, damn, they're going to take Sweat right now? I'm with you there. I think that's too high.
I thought it was too high.
Right.
I mean, I really liked Sweat's film at times for a rotational player.
Yeah.
I mean, he didn't weigh in at the Senior Bowl. He did get the weight down to a okay place at the Combine.
Right.
He gets the DUI before the draft.
Yeah.
There was already maturity questions while he was at Texas. Right. And he's a
There's
rotational
effort, intensity, questions when you watch the film.
Right. So I get it if you want to take him, and they didn't pick again until the 4th round. But no, I don't think anyone was taking Tavondre Sweat in the top 60. That's my take on it. Chris Jenkins was still there. I'd rather have Chris Jenkins. So that one for me, and then I'm pretty sure... Braden Fisk was still. He was the next
definitely.
pick.
The only logic I can come to with that one is that they were hell-bent on getting a pure nose tackle shade nose.
Like
right?
a clogger.
Because we don't want to use Jeffrey Simmons there anymore and let him be the 3 technique all the time. That's the only logic. And I'm not saying it's the right logic, but it's the only thing I can think of. That they just went, wait, we want a big run-stopping body like a DJ Reader like Callahan had with the Bengals, and he's going to try to recreate that. But, yeah, to me, it's risky at pick 38, certainly.
And then in round 4, they take Cedric Gray at 106.
Yeah.
A linebacker, to me, that's just rangy. Like, anything in the middle of the field is not going to be good. At 106, right after they take him, the Patriots take Javon Baker, and the Ravens take Devontae Walker.
Mm-hmm.
You're telling me the Titans couldn't use either of those down-the-field wide receiving threats?
That's a good point.
You needed an off-ball linebacker that, to me, is a sub-package player and a special teamer.
Yeah.
They just got really weird after the Latham pick, where I'm like, are they just falling in love with players and kind of neglecting better talent that I could argue is a more premium need?
Right.
For a team that, like, they couldn't have a one-man draft, the Titans.
Yeah.
They couldn't. And... I mean, maybe Brownlee will be a decent player at corner in round 5. I like James Williams converting to linebacker that they took at the end of the 7th.
Yep.
I know they took Jaquan Jackson as a deep threat out of Tulane in round 6. I thought Baker and Walker were four rounds better.
Yeah, I hear you there.
So
I hear you there.
I did not like what Tennessee did after Latham.
All right, so Tennessee, they lose the draft for Connor Rodgers.
It was my lowest grade. I gave him a C-.
Okay.
And I didn't think there was a lot of drafts where I was like, that's an awful draft.
Yeah,
Weird year where most teams were kind of just like pretty chalk.
It's the least blood-boiling, get-me-excited draft. The Tennessee's definitely up there in that conversation. All right, so now 1 pick. Give me your 1 pick, right? Not the Michael Penix pick, right? That I don't even want to dive into again, but it almost seems inevitable at times here right now in the NFL. Is there any pick that, again, you don't have to get to round 6 here, but I'm talking about top 60-something picks of the draft there that you, Mr. Johnny Expert of the draft, and your flower shirt might have just weren't sure about?
Well, I was really surprised the Falcons at 35 when they took Rukaroro
Oh, I know.
over Johnny Newton, Braden Fisk, and Chris Jenkins.
Yeah.
And it's weird because I don't think he's a bad player.
Right.
He's a good athlete. He's still kind of figuring out a lot of football things.
Right.
And the Clemson scheme can make anybody look pedestrian. I mean, it really can.
Well, he was played out of position. I
Right.
think that's the biggest problem. Right.
But at 35,
Yeah.
I thought he'd be like a really great pick for someone in 60 to 75.
Right.
With Johnny Newton still on the board, once again, I thought Fisk was more impactful. I think Jenkins is stronger. I was pretty floored when that was the name called off the board. That would be the one in the top 60, one in the top 80.
So this is where you and me will differ, right?
Yeah.
Because I kind of like that pick. I thought
Okay.
he was better than Jenkins. Now, I'm not going to say he was better than Newton.
What
but
about
I can
Fisk?
see. Well, there's certain things I'd like about him
Yeah.
more than
He's got
Fisk.
better length.
He definitely has better length. He has a better ability to hold his ground in the run game and hold
Yeah.
up against bigger people, right? That's where Fisk was like a little bit of like, I love Fisk, but man, there's a few things that worry me.
The bad could be really bad.
I mean, the bad,
Yeah.
like I think we talked about it. You were here the day we talked about it. I mean, he sometimes goes on a magic carpet ride for double on
Yeah.
double teams, so that scared me. Row is one of those. I think he's a safe pick. I think there's a little bit more upside than maybe you're giving credit for.
Right.
So we'll see where it goes either way. So I liked it a little more. Was I still shocked to see him go off right
The
there?
surprise factor definitely played a part.
You know what? I might have it in this notebook. I don't think I do. I didn't bring all my notebooks out here. I don't think I do have it in this one. I don't. I think I had him like in the 35 to 50
Okay.
range.
So you weren't
right?
really like,
I
the
wasn't,
range was fine.
because he was a little bit of those like you talked about with Clemson, where you just go, Clemson doesn't let him ever go. They don't ever let the go. And
No.
especially him, where he's really kind of a probably best is a 3 technique, 5 technique. He had to play nose tackle.
Right.
And that's where I think that hurt him a little bit, and people like ours eyes a little bit.
One more that surprised me, and like
Yeah.
these are really, even Aurora's really nitpicky.
Right.
When the Raiders took Delmar Glaze at 77, I think I had him 215-ish.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, is there something I missed? And this is a guy I actually talked about with an offensive line coach, because I was like, I don't see this one at all. And I got a lot of opinions back, like thinking he'd be more of a 5th, 6th round kind of guy. I thought the Raiders, really could have used a sturdy right tackle. And I think there was still some interesting players in the top 100. And it was just, they pressed that button. I was like, oh, wow. That's about 100 spots earlier than I was ready for.
Little surprised, seemed a little bit panicky. I think I was like almost surprised they went tight end Brock Bowers and didn't take the best tackle on the board when they had the first round pick.
I thought that could have been like a Fuanga,
I thought
Fatanu.
that would have what I would have expected. Now I think they were
Quinyon
throwing for
Mitchell.
a loop. That exactly right. I would have been all for that too. I think they were shocked that Michael Penix was off the board and that's who they were going to pick, and they were scrambling. And then I also think this is a result of that scramble. Like, oh wait,
Yeah.
Bowers is the best player on our board. We don't know who to take. We'll take him. And then it was like, oh shit. We still need linemen, right? We're a lineman deficient football team,
Yeah.
and they overreached for a guy that I guess they see something in that. I'm with you. I certainly did not expect him in that moment
No,
at all.
I didn't think he'd go in the top 150. And their first 2 picks are just awesome players for the Raiders, like Bowers and Jackson Powers Johnson. You want to be a tougher football team, like check the box, check the box.
It does.
And then that
100%.
pick, I was a little surprised, but everything they did around that pick was great. I gave the Raiders a B+. I thought they had a really good draft. It makes me wonder, like, if they had an average 3rd round pick in my eyes, they were one of my A's.
Yeah, I got you.
And
They
that pick nuked
blew
it.
Yeah.
Nuked it. Yeah.
All right. There you go. There's the Connor Rogers draft takeaways part 2. Okay. Now let's get into this. What we're going to do a little today with the rookie predictions, and we'll go through all a bunch of offense and use last year's guys to highlight each position here.
Yeah, we'll start. It'll be offense first this year's, right? That's how the 2024 rookie predictions. And just for a little example, the first one, who will be this year's C.J. Stroud? Tough bar to clear, Chris.
I mean,
if there will be a this year's C.J. Stroud, do you think someone can do it?
I do think somebody can. I mean, I'm going to pick Caleb Williams. If there's a guy to do it, it's him. And then, of course, what goes into that? Like, there's the support system around him. You just talked about Odunze there. I mean, Odunze, Keenan Allen, and DJ Moore, you get to walk into football, and those are your receivers with Cole Kmet at tight end, right? An offense that I'm not going to say I'm in love with in Shane Waldron and what he did up there with the Seattle Seahawks, but I like it. That to me
Can I
showed
cut you
me.
off?
Yeah,
I have this is like a fan perspective question.
Right.
Do you think we'll see a different Waldron without the Pete Carroll influence?
I do think there's a possibility.
Because coming from the McVay tree, I always wondered that.
Right.
I never want to give the guy the benefit of the doubt, clearly, but I am curious to see him have a little bit more keys to the car.
Yeah, right. I don't doubt that. I think Pete is one that kind of goes like, hey, I'd like
Run
to
the
play
ball.
like this.
Yeah.
I want to do this right here.
Yep.
And then you got to kind of color within those lines a little,
Yeah.
right? That's hard. It really is. I'm hopeful of that. And again, to have those guys, to have that pick, to have that offense, he's in a spot to be able to attack. And I think the fact that they take him, Rome Odunze, at 9 shows you that they think Caleb Williams can attack right from day one. Now, like you said, those are lofty expectations. I mean, there's only been 2 people in the history of the sport that have had rookie years like C.J. Stroud. One is him, and the other one is Dan Marino, really. That's it. So, those are lofty, lofty expectations, but I do think Caleb Williams is NFL ready and then, of course, has the pieces around him.
And then you think of, it's Caleb Williams for me. There's just no other answer, right? And I know people are like, well, will Dunze play a lot, this and that. Number one, he shouldn't, 11 personnel. Keenan Allen's missed some time over the last 2 years.
Right.
Like it's
getting up there.
Yeah, he's a 32-year-old wide receiver.
Exactly.
I mean, there should be a big opportunity for a Dunze. I liked that pick a lot. I think it's Caleb Williams as well. I think the question is, does he have to produce like C.J. Stroud? They have good defense.
Right.
We think they'll be able to control the game pretty well. They've added to the backfield. The offensive line looks better.
Yep.
Like with Stroud last year, there was a couple times where Slowick just had to be like, all right, we got to throw this time to win.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Caleb will be asked to do that.
No, I know. I think it'll be a little bit. They'll try to limit the burden on him early on in the year, and I think the Texans tried to do that a little last year at the start of the year.
Definitely.
They
were a little run heavy in the first half.
They did, but then it kind of got to, wait, this guy can handle this, and their defense started letting up a few points. And like you said, they kind of got put in a corner in a few games where like, we have no choice but just to unleash it and see where it goes. And he thrived in those situations. Like you think about like the Buccaneers game, week 9, right? That was one where it became a shootout. That was to me the first time I went, whoa, like shootout, and like that dude was comfortable and like making plays the whole game and like wow throws, and then it seemed like it exploded from there. I would think they try to do that. Again, defensive coach, I don't think he's going to want the game to be, hey, throw all the time, especially early on, or at least until he proves he can like be efficient and move the ball like that on a consistent basis.
Our next one, who will be this year's Will Levis, another quarterback that shows some flashes.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think Drake May. I, of course, think Jaden Daniels can be that guy, right? But and Michael Penix isn't playing. J.J. McCarthy's the guy that I go to here in this one. J.J. McCarthy and a little Bo Nix, but I think if you made me pick one, I'd pick J.J. McCarthy. He got one of the best offensive coaches in football. He got a duo at receiver in Addison and Justin Jefferson that would rival anybody in football, right? Hawkinson, I know, coming off the knee injury, but he'll be back nonetheless at, close to 100% by week 4 or 5. And then great offensive pass protection tackles. I mean, both of their tackles are elite in pass protection, and O'Neal and Darisaw. So those reasons right there. And then a system fit. That was the thing when I said J.J. McCarthy and Bo Nix, they are system fits. Not only do I like their talent, but they are exactly what works in that offense. And O'Connell likes play-action pass. Even, I've said this today on Florida, even though they don't run the ball that well, he still calls play-action pass like they're a really good running football team. And I think J.J. McCarthy will thrive in that environment.
My answer for this one might surprise you a little bit, and it's definitely like a little bit of a prayer.
Yeah.
I think this could be Michael Penix. It's just going to take circumstances that we can't predict.
Yeah, that's right.
Cousins sprains an ankle. I think he's going to be ready to start the
setback
season.
with the Achilles.
Could be a setback.
Like
If Penix gets the chance to play at all this year due to injury, and they're not going to bench Kirk Cousins, everyone, he will have big-time flashes in that offense.
Yeah.
That's a good line. They got Drake London. They got Bijan Robinson. He's pro-ready.
He's pro-ready.
That's why it's
crazy.
Infuriating.
And that's why it's also crazy because it could go the total other way, and they could go to the playoffs this year with Kirk Cousins, and then they can even be better in year 2, and then you're sitting there in year 3 going, well, we got to go with Kirk Cousins. We got to the divisional or championship game last year. That's where it makes no sense. And yeah, Michael Penix would have been the rookie quarterback that you go, hey, he's actually a rookie that makes sense for this team that's kind of ready right now. That's where it makes no sense. And as the more time goes on and everything, it just feels like they figured out how good he was like 3 or 4 weeks before the draft.
They were too late.
And that's where they're getting lambasted. You should have known that before the year. You should have known before the year, ooh, we got our eye on Michael Penix. Just like, you know who the Falcons had their eye on before the year? Jaden Daniels. Their whole thing was, we're going to get Jaden Daniels. People are sleeping on Jaden Daniels. And then, of course, it exploded, and they went, oh, he's going to be the number 2 pick. Yeah. We're not going to get him. We need to pivot here, right? Right? But those are the kind of things you need to know before the year. You have to know already, wait, this guy's got a chance. I like his game. He is on our radar, you know, for a top half of the first-round pick next year. Okay, I'm going to fly out there in October and make sure he still looks the way I think he should look. You know, I'm going to keep watching games on film. I'm going to fly out there for the Final Four and make sure he looks the way I look. Okay, check the box, check the box. I liked him before the year. Unbelievable year this year, right? But this has all the feel of we signed him, and then all of a sudden we went and watched film of the quarterbacks, and we're like, holy shit, Michael Penix is awesome. And then we had a pro day or a workout with him, and we came away going, holy shit, he's the best quarterback in the draft.
We have to
and
have
they
him.
should have known
Yeah.
that answer before that, and that's the problem with Atlanta right now.
So if you gave Terry Fontenot truth serum, you think he'd undo the Kirk Cousins contract?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. It's
Definitely.
a tough position.
Right. I'm still amazed by it.
I always say these things have a way of working themselves out,
Right.
but this one's pretty tough.
This one is tough.
Like, there's a lot of money the next 2 years.
There's a lot
that
of
can't-
ways this thing can go.
Yes.
Right? Now, I know there's one way it can go where they're going to be able to go, hey, see, this is why we picked him, and that's awesome, right? I know that. I get that. But there's also like 74 other roads where you go, well, this road is a disaster.
Yeah.
It's dysfunction to your team.
Shit, yeah.
So I hope it, works out on the road you want it to work out on there.
One more quarterback one here.
Yeah.
Who will be this year's Aiden O'Connell, a late-round quarterback that has some kind of impact as a rookie?
Yeah.
There was only one clear-cut guy for me on this one.
Yeah, I know. It's Spencer Rattler,
Yes.
right? I mean, it's the only guy that I would even trust to throw on the field in the late rounds, really,
Right.
out of these guys. I mean, Jordan Travis has a little of that, but I'm not ready to go there, nor is his talent of Spencer Rattler's.
And he's not healthy.
No, not healthy, not going to be ready to go. And, yeah, Derek Carr, who's been banged up a little bit, and I don't think the Saints are ready to just go, oh, we love him, he's the man, or
No.
whatever. So you could see if, like, play goes bad or he gets banged up, I could see Spencer Rattler coming in, who's played a lot of football and is ready that way to hold down the fort. And, maybe he has to play 3 games and he wins 2 of them. And we go, ooh, we got something. Like, he'd be the guy I'd pick in that department for sure.
Yeah, I think that was the only answer for that one.
Yeah.
All right, the next one, moving to the running backs.
Yeah.
Who will be this year's Bijan Robinson, the rookie rush yards leader?
Well, now, I like the kid who went to Green Bay in Marshawn Lloyd out of USC the most, right? But I'm not going to pick him just because I like him the most.
Yeah, they give Josh Jacobs like
Exactly.
$12 million.
It's not the best situation.
Right.
I just don't see that happening. So with this one here, you just go, wait, talent and situation, where does that match up? And I think the first running back off the board is the one that I'm still going to pick here to win that. Now, Jalen Wright at Tennessee, right, from Tennessee, who went to the Miami Dolphins, that perks me up because, to me, Jalen Wright was just such a straight liner, and that's all he was. And in that team, straight lines are open all the time because the field's so open, right? So, it was kind of the same thing with Achane, where I was like, I don't love Achane coming out, but if you tell me he's going to have all this space, so I love him then, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel about that. But I think Jonathan Brooks is the one I'd go with. One, I think they, again, will try to run the ball to take a little pressure off of their young quarterback. And I think the other thing on top of that, not a bad O-line, and I think he's clearly going to be the best running back on their roster, right? There's nobody there where I go, well,
yeah, it's
I mean, if he's healthy and he's good to go, and that's the only question here is the health, right? And how close is he to 100% when training camp comes? If he's close to 100%, he's clearly my pick. The only thing that makes me doubt is that a little bit, and then I would say Jalen Wright would be my second pick.
That was my biggest question with Brooks is, will he be full throttle?
Yeah.
Will they treat him like that?
Right.
I went with Trey Benson because
Okay.
I love Trey Benson,
Yeah.
but also James Conner's hurt every year. It's time to kind of slowly pass the baton to the next guy. I think that offense is going to be good.
He's got some James Conner style about him. When
And
they
he's
drafted
a good
him,
pass catcher.
I know. Well, he really is.
Yeah, he was underutilized at Florida State in that area.
Definitely.
He's a good pass catcher, good in space, contact balance. I could definitely see some point of the season where they're like, it's probably time for Trey Benson. Like, James Conner's banged up. It's October. Let's kind of work him in a little easier pace that we can keep him healthy for the stretch run, and Benson becomes the bell cow.
He's got potential, right? He definitely does. There's definitely some plays where you want more, right? Where you go, damn, you're too big. Run that guy over. Break that tackle. Like, you can't let that guy tackle you.
Stop dancing.
Right?
Yeah.
But the NFL, maybe this brings him out. Maybe the first time he sees James Conner go through the line of scrimmage, he goes, oh, shit, I got to run like that? Oh, well, okay, I got to up my level here a little bit. But two, I think with your point with that one where I like that too, as I'm thinking about it, hey, Kyler Murray, his ability to run, again, hey, I think, sneaky good receivers and tight end, field spread. Benson's a little bit of a straight liner himself too.
Sure.
To where you go, yeah, I could see some, him ripping off some big plays there.
The next one's kind of funny, and we'll get to why. Who will be this year's Devon Achane, committee running back who looks explosive?
Yeah, so that goes back to, I think, the two guys I just kind of talked about. I'm going to go Marshawn Lloyd there or Jalen Wright, specifically, right? Wright's the one that makes the most sense. And, again, what we saw out of Miami last year, I think it's a very real thing. Again, they don't have big running backs. They're going to get hurt. Mostert's been hurt his whole career. I mean, that's like he misses a handful of games every year of his career almost, right? Devon Achane got hurt last year too.
He's like 189 pounds.
Yeah, when you're a cheetah, right? Cheetahs, you get a bit banged up. You get in the middle of the lions and the hyenas and all that.
It's
you come away with a little bit of a different body there. So I don't know if that made sense, but I'm going with it right now. Okay,
power through.
Okay, but cheetahs are the frailer of the cats, and that's what I'm saying. Like the cheetahs are the guys that on your football team where they have like a little tweak in their ankle, and they're like, oh, I can't walk on that ankle ever again because they're so used to being these high-tuned, finely tuned athletes, right? They feel one little thing, and they're like, wait, I'm not 100%. I'm used to feeling like the greatest human on the planet. Something's wrong here. And they're like, relax, it's just your fingernail, man. You're okay.
Right.
But yeah, I think we're on the same path there. Anybody else that pops to you?
I mean, Jalen Wright was my favorite one. He's 210 pounds.
Yeah.
People forget that because of how fast he is.
Right.
I think there's a time where, I think my hottest take is he will eventually surpass Achane in this offense. Maybe not this year, but 2 years from now. I just think that body,
a little more bell cow.
That body type.
To him.
I really like your call out of Marshawn Lloyd because I thought he was the perfect complement for Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, similar style.
You're right, but I think Lloyd has a little bit more outside juice than Jacobs.
I hear you there.
And that might be a little recency bias for me because Jacobs didn't look like himself after the weird summer last year.
Yeah, right.
But when you let him smash between the tackles, and then Marshawn Lloyd can make you miss.
Yeah.
But you're right, the lower body like twitchiness is a little similar.
That's what I was going to say.
I
just
agree.
the ability to move in short spaces and do all that. You're right. Jacobs has a more physical style of his running. But that same lower body strength.
My underrated one here that we don't even have on the graphic because he went too late is Tyrone Tracy for the Giants.
Right.
I mean, former wide receiver from Iowa. Looks great as a running back at Purdue in 1 year.
Right.
The Giants, who in that backfield scares you where you're like, oh, man, Tracy's not going to see the field. Even if Singletary's the guy, I still think Tracy gets more reps than the other guys by October, honestly.
I don't know a lot about Tracy.
Oh, he's fast. You'll really like him quickly.
I gotta check him out. He's like a part of the list of like down the line guys where I went. I can't watch all these guys right now. I gotta move on to another position, so I don't have a great feel for him.
Yeah, he would be my super dark horse pick for this one.
Cool. That's
Our next one. Who will be this year's Zay Flowers, Rashee Rice, a round one wide receiver who makes plays for a contender? This one took me a while. Not gonna lie, one of the longer categories.
Well, I think the contender thing.
That's why
was what makes this hard, right?
Like, do you think the Giants or Cardinals are contenders? I think they're going to be really competitive. I don't know if they're going to be contenders.
Right.
That's a lofty.
And that leads us to a Doomsday.
We got a couple teams.
Yeah.
Right.
And I would say almost the same thing. It's contender.
Competitive versus contender.
I'm not sure I'm ready to put them in the playoff combo there. Right?
Like, I think the Bears could steal a wild card. I don't think the Bears can win the Super Bowl. I think that's the difference.
Right. I hear you there.
Yeah.
No, I think of the true contenders and a team where I go, oh, I can legitimately sit here out of those teams and go, I could pick this team to win that division. Yeah, you're going to pick the Jaguars, right? And then there's the Brian Thomas Jr. aspect.
Yep.
Right? And I think that's where, from the complete contenders thing, he's the guy. I think Malik Neighbors is the guy, right? And all of the way there. But I don't know if I'm really legitimately ready to call the Giants a contender as I sit here and go, well, they're the third best team in the division. I mean, I'm not ready to do that. So that's where, reading into Pete Demolitis's language there, That's the one I guess I look at a lot because I think he's got superstar talent. I think they'll make the game simple on him early. I think he's going to make everybody else better because he's going to be one of those guys like a Jamar Chase or whoever. You can just line up and go, if you're man-to-man, we expect you to win. And if they double you, then Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram are going to be wide open over here, and we'll work it that way. So that's the one I like the most as far as when you balance production and contender, right? Like, hey, I like Ricky Pearsall to the 49ers. I like Xavier Worthy. I don't know if I'm necessarily like saying they're going to lead their teams in receiving and all of that, where I think Brian Thomas Jr. still has a chance to do that in year one.
I went with Pearsall, but with the thought of, I really wanted to go with someone that I know is a contender for sure. And the fact that, Debo will probably miss time if they keep him, assuming they keep him. I think Pearsall is such a great fit for that offense. He's going to be a big-time player for them. The long term for the Niners should be Ayuk and Pearsall, not Debo and Pearsall.
I wouldn't be surprised.
Right.
I would not.
I know it's going to take some cap gymnastics, but, I mean, the way Purdy throws and they create space with separation rather than the manufacturer plays the Debo, Ayuk and Pearsall are a nightmare for teams.
Definitely.
Nightmare.
Shanahan's going to put them in plays and orchestrate plays with their splits and how they do it according to the coverage. And this is where Shanahan's a master, and this is where I get into teams that value route runners and know how to use them, right? Like the Chiefs are a team where I go, they don't really care about route runners, right? It's just like, Xavier, run from here to over there. And I know they have guys that run routes. I'm just trying to make the point. Generally on their offense, it's like there's three guys running deep crosses. It's like one's running a cross at 5 yards, another one's running across at 20 yards, and then they got a post over the top with a guy on the other side running across in the opposite direction of the other three people. So that's not route running, right? It's just like, hey, be fast and get off the line of scrimmage well and run awesome over there. No, with like your point to Pearsall and what he's talking about, like Shanahan's going to set them up, let alone they know they have the skill set to run great routes. And then you couple that with Shanahan's genius and